What are the best decks in Premium at the moment? Here we are. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about how the format has changed with the release of the Stride deck set for Night Rose and Harry, and just kind of see how the format is kind of laid out, right? There's a lot of results that have just come from the previous weekend. We had BCS Sydney, BCS Tampa, we had Cardiff as well, and this is just kind of how the landscape will look once, you know, the last few BCSs go along towards our World's Final as well. So let's start off with a deck that a lot of people know is Neonectar. So Katrina, it won BCS Tampa. I think the deck is still really good. Funnily enough, now it is a very honest deck. It does what it does. There's a lot of ways to counter it. Previously, it was gated by Ghidorah, but now Ghidorah is not really too much of a threat anymore. Ghidorah players are jumping onto other decks as well. So I think the deck is very good in comparison to something like Night Rose, which is like extremely better. It was already really good in the previous format. Obviously gated by Ghidorah. Ghidorah is no longer a thing. It also has Crest. So Crest obviously allows you to play a game where a lot of your minor decisions have less consequences. So essentially, you know, you can play not to the full min-max. If you play like, you know, you're min-rolling, mid-rolling, you don't get punished, right? Because the Crest power is just really, really strong. So Ground Blue, I think, is one of the best decks, if not the best deck in the format. It's just so versatile. We saw Kelvin on stream on the weekend. He won finals without Crest, like against Harry with Crest. Like, it's just ridiculous, right? I think the deck is really good. Yeah, probably one of the best decks to look out for. Angel Feather. So Angel Feather is also a really good deck at the moment. Angel Gizeh is a very formidable deck. It won BCS Cardiff, came second BCS Singapore. There's a few other ones, you know, roaming around. BCS Malaysia came second as well. I think Angel Gizeh is just really good, right? I think the deck is, it has a win condition that is just as unfair as Crests, right? So which is why I think the deck itself is highly rated, because the deck can stand a chance against a lot of these Crest decks, right? In the previous format, when we didn't have Crest Night Rose and Crest Harry, the deck was already good into Crest Shunui. Shunui hasn't changed, so the deck just prevails as it is, right? Less Katrina as well, which makes the deck even better, because Katrina is actually a harder matchup for it. But yeah, Angel Gizeh, really, really strong. Link Joker. So Link Joker has a few different decks. So it has the Leader Messiah, has Chaos. I think the Leader Messiah is really the main one. And I'll put that at the benchmark. I think you'll see this deck, you know, first 4 rounds of your 7-round tournament. It's still a really strong deck. Sometimes it can catch you off guard and you just win. But it's not a bad deck, right? So I think Link Joker at the moment, it goes in here. It has other things like Crest Messiah or whatever it is. So I think the deck is, you know, formidable. It's not obviously groundbreaking as some of the other decks up here. So I think it's a fair deck. I think it's a formidable deck to bring to BCS. And I think like that's the tier, right? B for benchmark, B for BCS. I would bring it to a BCS if I wasn't playing, you know, everything above, right? Spike Brothers, kind of the same thing. I think Hellheart 8 is a deck that has, you know, come off light as of recent. Obviously came first in one of the European regionals, but Spike Brothers has always been there, right? Addition of ladder allows for your attacks to just get absolutely mitigated. Can't touch rear guards. The only thing that can kind of stop is like Honolly, but even then it has ways out of Honolly too. So I think Spike Brothers, very, very strong. But you know, a lot of these other decks just have a lot more early game potential to just outrush it. This is Nubatama, I think. Or is it Tachikaze? This is Tachikaze, I think. So this is Tachikaze. So Tachikaze, I think, has potential if it's been put into the hands of someone good. It does have a loop, the Koa Magnum loop, but I think there's a lot of things that has to go right to get that loop going. Yeah, I think it's just, there's a lot going on, but I don't think it can live the earlier turns against something aggressive like, you know, Grand Blue, Neonectar, Shunui, for it to get to the position that it needs to be for the loop itself. So I think Tachikaze, just under the benchmark. I think if it somehow gets some innovation, I think the deck would be really good. But yeah, you know, tell Tachikaze main, tell Cardfight to like, you know, cook up this deck, play this deck or something, and then, you know, it becomes really good, right? Aqua Force. So Aqua Force, I think it's past its days. It was really good in the ride down meta, but it has no support ever since. Probably wait till like, I don't know, Crest Davos or something like that to make the deck good. But yeah, I think the deck needs a lot to kind of bring it back to where it was before. Highlander is Bermuda Triangle deck at the moment, and I think it's really good. I think it was already good in the previous format. Obviously not going up against something like, you know, Grand Blue or something more flexible. I think the deck is still really good. Yeah, still formidable deck. Has denial plays, very aggressive, especially going first. Can deny by riding down. It has all the tools, right? So Bermuda, still good. Chronojet or Crestjet. I think Crestjet is actually pretty formidable, but I think in comparison to something like Night Rose, Harry, Shunui, I think it just kind of sits there. It's good, right? You'll see it in the top tables, but I just feel like unless you're Dave Vec, then, you know, this deck just kind of, how should I say? It's a very 50-50 deck. I think it just needs something more, and I think this deck would be like A tier, potentially S tier. But yeah, I think the deck has a lot of potential, but put it into the hands of a good pilot, I think it'll work well, right? Dark Regulars. Dark Regulars, as of recent, no big developments other than the Gastille that came third in Cardiff. But I think it's still a scary deck. I think now DI just kind of goes here, right? It's a really strong deck. If it pops off, it pops off. Like, you just cannot stop it, right? So maybe it just kind of goes here. We did see it top 8 in Malaysia. So Hong Wai top 8'd with NLK. I think maybe we just put it at the end of A. Like, it's still a good deck. It's still a deck that people have to look out for. And I think it's like a really good deck, right? DP. DP has seen a lot of tops. Came second. Previously, Alex Kwon came second. Also came second, Will Pang in the US. I think DP is alright, but I think in comparison to anything up here, it just gets out aggroed, or the kill turn for these decks are just really, really strong, right? You verse DI, they drop a Hope on Damp, your threes just become like completely useless, right? So I think DP is like probably brinking A or just under A, very high B. I think the deck is really strong, right? Ghidorah. So, Ghidorah got banned. Wait, this is Great Nature, right? Great Nature. I think Great Nature goes here. I think Great Nature, someone like Terry Tai in Singapore who piloted it to top 8. And I think I versed against it. I think a good pilot will, you know, see this deck, pay its rewards. But I think there's not enough development for this deck to be good, unless it's given to a good pilot, right? Which is why I'm not going to put it in Aqua Force tier. I think Aqua Force needs way more help than Great Nature. So, you know, call up your Zookeeper, you know, cook this deck up and just make it work, because I'll play it. I'll play it at a BCS if it's really good, right? But obviously I haven't invested enough time into Great Nature as a lot of other people have. So yeah, I think Great Nature has a lot of potential, just needs a good person to, you know, cook it up. Ghidorah. So I'm going to put Ghidorah in top B, right? Top B, I think it is innovated with Mythiarch Ghidorah. I think the fact that you can restand with your grade 2, Delphina, I think it is. Then you can chain antlines. I think it's really strong. Obviously, you only have access to 2 Ghidorahs, so if your opponent has a way to just cancel out the antlines and slow your game down, then you just kind of lose after that. But like, a lot of these decks just don't really care about Ghidorah and just beats you. Like, Highlander doesn't care, NLK doesn't care. But the problem is that Mythiarch Ghidorah doesn't gain enough hand in comparison to some of the other decks here to make it formidable enough, right? So like, Neonectar previously could get through 2 turns of Ghidorah, but just not the 3rd one. So now that it can, like, it's a little bit scary for the Ghidorah, I think. But I still think it keeps in check a lot of these other decks. But like something like Shunui, right? Shunui, really, really strong, right? Still strong, still has crest power, still has an unfair guard restrict card in Mizukaze, has an unfair strat in Sukumura-kan, like reducing your hand to 4. You have essentially, what, 6 attacks or something. It's ridiculous with crest power as well. So I think this deck just outbeats Ghidorah. So a lot of the decks up here just beat Ghidorah naturally, right? So, and something like Nova Grappler, right? I think Nova Grappler is insanely strong, right? If Victor goes into Ghidorah, Victor just wins, right? Just straight up wins. And I think Victor has a really good chance to go into a lot of his other decks as well. It has no way to stop this deck. And if this deck just drops a Bracing Angel Ladder and it goes for their kill turn, you're just winning, right? Only thing stopping this deck is Honolulu. And that's why Katrina is good, right? Katrina is still in the same tier it is because it has the utilization of Honolulu. But something like Angel Gize, going to that, auto loss, right? Really, really strong. If the Victor knows how to pilot into Angel Gize just on the floor. Absolutely, right? What's this? Kagero? This is Kagero, right? I think Kagero goes here. It has a lot that, well, let me put it this way. A lot of other decks do what Kagero does well with the restand, right? Sure, Kagero gets like 1 extra restand or something like that. It still has insane pressure, but the hand is like nearly 0, right? You're not guarding against a lot of these other decks, and these other decks just kind of do the same. Grand Blue has Bad Bounty. Pale Moon has Dark Lord Princess. Shunui has just pretty much dominate, right? Katrina has infinite PGs. Angel Gize is, you just strat Gize and then, like, what is Kagero gonna do, right? Has infinite protects. Bermuda Triangle as well, just re-rides Heltrata into Reindeer, right? It does what Kagero does. So Kagero with no hand is pretty much a fake persona of the other decks, or the other decks are better personas of Kagero, right? So Kagero, unfortunately, kind of down here. Yeah, it really needs some help, right? This is Genesis. I think Genesis is one of the best decks. Well, not best decks, but one of the contending decks. There's Fenrir OTK. There is Fenrir Control. Regalia is still good. I think all 3 of those decks are very, very strong. If we were to talk about Fenrir OTK, it might actually go up here. But I think, you know, once the news is out, I think a lot of people will invest time on how to beat it. And if you know how to beat it, then you're winning anyways, right? What's this? This is Shadows. This is Shadows. What Shadows have? Revengers? I think Revengers are alright. Revengers did come second in BCS Melbourne, piloted by Nick. I think it's, you know, formidable. And I think also Gold Paladin is formidable too. Gurgit, still really strong with Ultima, has a 1 PG card in Providence Angel. It has Bracing Angel Ladder, your opponent can't stop it. Sure, you might be able to stop it with Honolulu, but if you're dropping a Providence Angel, you just attack with like your biggest columns first with like 3 or 4 crits, your opponent's just dead, right? So yeah, those are the 2. Royals. Royals has like, what, Jewel Knight? That's about it, right? So I think as good as Royals is with Crystal Luster, it doesn't really have a strong deck to contend with, right? So I think Royals just needs something else to spice up Premium, because at the moment it's just Jewel Knights, and Jewel Knights is just not gonna cut it, unfortunately, right? So I guess I'll just kind of go down here. Maybe I give it some respect, put it in C, but it's just, these decks can beat Jewel Knight, right? Like, Jewel Knight just feels very fair. Too fair, probably like a V plus deck, I think. OTT, Ichipopo, still strong. Burn a bunch of Kalikos, get to your bottom deck, hit red OT on Popo, and your opponent's dead with a bunch of crits, right? I think it's really good. Pale Moon, Crest Harry, one of the best decks in the format. I think a lot of people anticipated that. No lie, I think the deck is ridiculous. Kevin Cho came first with it. Came second in BCS Melbourne. I think the deck's just really strong, right? Came third in Rosemont as well. I think, you know, the crest power was what Harry needed. I've been asking for it since Worlds when I went 0x. Yeah, I think Crest Harry is just really strong. What's this? Narukami? Narukami is alright. I think we'll put it there. I think Narukami, it's not going to contend into these decks, I think. Or maybe it will. But I think, you know, Narukami, solid, strong deck, right? So maybe it goes like at the bottom here. But you're contending against a lot of these other decks. So I think these other decks will just beat Narukami. So maybe it goes there. And then Murakumo. What does Murakumo have? Shiryuki. Trade. Homura Raider Loot. I don't know. I think Murakumo needs some help. So I think these 4 decks need some help. I think the decks itself are just not... The support's just not there for the deck to contend well. So I think if we're looking at the landscape at the moment, anything like being above, I would see at a BCS, right? Any of the other decks you don't really need to test against because the likelihood of you encountering these decks are very low. And if you do encounter them and you're playing any of the decks in S to B tier, like you're beating them, right? Maybe except for Great Nature. Put Great Nature up there, right? So I think, you know, this is kind of the landscape of what Premium is like at the moment. So the 3 best decks are the 3 Crest decks, but not by a lot, right? So we're talking about like realistically, I would put probably something like this, where Granblue is the best deck in the format, right? And then everything else just kind of comes under it, just because of how flexible Granblue is. Literally has all the tools. You punch hard already. You put a crest in there, you're pretty much punching inevitably. You have access to every card in the deck, every card in your drop zone. It's just ridiculous, right? But, you know, S tier, you put like a group of strong decks. So you put, you know, Pale Moon and Shunui up there. And then, you know, the next best decks down are like Katrina, Angel Gize, Highlander, NLK, Victor, Fenrir. And I think these decks go formally well into these 3. These decks are, you know, strong enough to win a regional, right? And then these other decks you'll see in your early rounds of the tournament, and then these other decks just kind of need a little bit of help, right? So yeah, that's pretty much my tier list for Premium starting. I know this is like posted in February, but let's talk about this for January's sake. I want to try to do one of these once every 3 months just to kind of see how the formats have changed, because we obviously get, you know, 1 or 2 sets within the 3 months, right? So yeah, this is what it is for Premium, probably until Worlds, unless we get like another ban list or something. If you guys like this video, pop a like, comment down below what you guys think of the format at the moment. I think it's pretty interesting, you know. Aside from Crest, I think a lot of people wanted the format to shake up, and it did, right? So, you know, when it shakes up, this is what we'll see, right? New development, and as we can see, Pale Moon was absolutely dog water before, got a Crest and became really good. You know, exactly what we want, right? So yeah, if you guys haven't already, click that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.